Another conversation that needs to be had because Minnesota Vikings fans love to look in the rearview mirrors and think, what if? Even if the situation is unrealistic. So the conversation that's happening today is, did the Minnesota Vikings miss on Joe Flacco? Let Kwesi cook. He chose Josh Dobbs over Joe Flacco. And this is going to be a very short podcast. Joe Flacco has bounced around the NFL for the last several years, and his numbers have been awful. When he was 34 years old, 2019, he was the Denver Broncos quarterback. His record was 2-6. His completion percentage was 65%. He threw 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. 2020 with the Jets, 0-4 record, 55% completion percentage, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. 2021 with the Jets, he's 36 years old at this point. He only played in 2 games, started one, went 0-1, 64% completion percentage. I guess he had 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. His final year with the Jets, 37 years old, 2022. He played in 5 games. He started 4 of them. His record was 1-3. 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And this season with the Browns, it's a fun story. But you've got to think about the situation. The Cleveland Browns have one of the best defenses in the league. They have a good running game. They've got good receivers. They've got talent all over their team because Deshaun Watson decided to take his money in the future. So they're really not paying Deshaun Watson all that money this season. He started 5 games. His completion percentage is only 60%, and he has 13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Joe Flacco would not be looking like this in a Minnesota Vikings uniform. 1, the Vikings offensive line isn't as good. 2, the Vikings defense isn't as good. 3, the Vikings running backs aren't as good. I love Kevin O'Connell, but Kevin Stefanski, he's been a head coach longer than Kevin O'Connell has. So you look at all of this stuff and all of these things, and did the Vikings miss on Joe Flacco? Joe Flacco wasn't even the Cleveland Browns' first option. They went to this Dorian Thompson. They went to this P.J. Walker guy. When Watson got hurt, Flacco wasn't their guy. They were forced into signing Flacco, and he was on their practice squad up until like 2 weeks ago. They just kept on activating him. So if the Vikings wanted to make a play and sign him, they could have off of the Browns practice squad. It's funny how people come up with these things where, like, Kwesi made a mistake not signing Joe Flacco and trading for Josh Dobbs. In what world are you living in? Just look at the numbers. Just look at the situations. Joe Flacco was thrown into the perfect situation with the Cleveland Browns. And the Minnesota Vikings situation ain't perfect. What else needs to be said? Josh Dobbs is at least putting up numbers for the Arizona Cardinals when the Vikings traded for him. He was a part of that competitive rebuild. But Joe Flacco, as fun as this story is, I enjoy watching him. But it's not like he's doing anything special. It's not like he's carrying the team. He's relying on a running game and a defense. And they're putting up numbers. They scored like 37 points against the Jets. But the pressure isn't on Flacco. Flacco is an all-time game manager. for the Browns. And that's why he's been successful. He's taking care of the football for the most part. But his completion percentage ain't that special. 60%? Which means he's going 6 for 10, which means he's 12 for 20. Which means he's, 18 for 30? Those numbers ain't special. It's a fun story. But the Vikings didn't miss on Joe Flacco. Get real. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Minnesota Tim Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, thank you for making this podcast part of your day. And please rate, review, and follow the podcast wherever you are listening to this podcast. Everyone, have a great day.